Listening to this podcast right now! Me? Do you want to hear a fucking podcast about anything and everything? Yeah. Like movies, music, television, and more?
Oh my god.
Well, you've come to the right place.
Yes.
Subscribe to Journey into Comics Network, and you get Podcastrophe, hosted by me,
Yes.
Dick. Why not throw a couple bucks to the Patreon? It's your choice. Yeah. This is a Podcastrophe.
That sounds so awesome.
The following
is a Journey into Comics.
Journey into Comics.
It's a Journey into Comics.
Journey into Comics.
Journey into Comics.
Journey into Comics.
Network.
production.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Adulting Ain't Easy, a show because sometimes adulting is hard. My name is Andrew, and joining me, as always, is Liz.
Hello.
Hello. Now, what we're going to talk about today is something that kind of came up out of the blue today after I finished up working outside with Liz's father and grandfather, which was exciting, which is fun. And one thing you'll learn as an adult is that eventually you'll take vacation time not for fun, but to do home improvement projects. So, yay for us.
Or go to the doctor.
Or
Just run errands because your life is so hectic that you can't even take a breath after work to go and get groceries.
Do you remember calling in sick to do something fun instead of calling in sick to act because you're actually sick?
Well, I didn't get to do that because my parents were fun suckers. Actually, there was one time we did it, but that was an extended one. So my dad took a business trip to Hawaii when I was in the 5th grade, and it was for 10 days, and so I was out of school, I think, for like 5 or 6 days or something like that, and that was the only time that I was ever taken out of school early, like, for an extended absence like that. I've never got to, like, do anything fun on a day off of school. My parents were very strict about that.
I don't feel good. Well, you're going to school.
As long as I wasn't throwing up and had a fever, you're going to school.
You just felt miserable at school.
Oh, yeah.
No amount of crying or...
I mean, I'm the same way now with work. It's sad.
Well, that's what, now it's I can't be sick because it's more work to prepare a sub than to actually be sick.
That's why I have that shirt you got me. Everything hurts and I'm dying, but writing subplants is worse.
Oh, yeah. I like
That's
that you have
the
that
best
shirt. You just need to wear that to school more often.
I've worn it. I like it.
Other
teachers like it.
I agree. Mm-hmm. But, we got a lot of it. So, what we want to talk about today was youths.
The youth.
These two youths.
I did not think I would ever get to the point where I'd have to act like my parents and be like, these teenagers these days, they're terrible. But it's true. They are terrible.
Yeah, our last big encounter with the future...
Future of America.
The future of America. And that was Liz and I, being adults, had a nice night. We had to return some stuff to Macy's. And then we decided, we're at the mall. Let's go play some glow golf, which is like putt-putt, but you're inside, there's black lights and all that fun stuff. Well, it's cheap, we'll play a quick game and then kind of go about our business. So we're there, we're playing around.
And they have a nice order to things. They have nice arrows pointing you in the direction, and they have the numbers on the holes and stuff. So, right. They're very on top of their game.
Right, and then all of a sudden these prepubescent girls with, glow stick headbands and all this crap show up as, a birthday party thing, which I don't know why people bring their, kids to a birthday party at a mall, but okay. So they came in and they got their stuff, and then we're just kind of...
Obnoxious.
Obnoxious is a...
I don't know, I'm sure I was obnoxious as a teenager as well, or a prepubescent teenager, but I was never to the point where it would bother other people, they were just, all over the place. They would take a free hole, and they would just putt away and whatever, and didn't really have any regards for, the order. of that kind of stuff, and that's what kind of made me mad, because there were like, if it were just us and like younger people, that would be different, but there were like parents with their kids and like parents with their like kids with their grandparents and parents, and like that's not fair when there's like families there. If it were different, like if there were a lot of like younger couples like us there, I wouldn't have cared.
Right.
But there were like families there and like with little kids,
right?
And
who are more well behaved than those kids.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Right. Like it's one thing. Like, okay, if you rent the whole place and it's like it's totally your space, play to your heart's content. Run from the last hole to the first hole and back. I don't care. But like if you're there, you need to like follow the rules. Like most other putt places, there's no way to get to other holes. It's kind of you play a track. Mm-hmm. You can't really run around. So that's. But it was in a confined space. It was in like a former other retail stores, so it was just a bunch of holes close together. But still, like, if all of you did it, like ran through it would have been fine because you all were playing quick but you shouldn't just be like, I'm gonna go to 15, then 9, then 1, then 24. Like, no, just play the holes as ordered. Mm-hmm. Like, and there's some like we saw some nice people that were a little bit younger than us too.
Yeah,
like that group ahead of us was like, we're just messing around. We're not actually just go ahead of us, just play through. And
yes, there are still a few youths that are nice, but a lot of the time.
But they were older youths. They were like probably.
They were in high school.
Yeah.
But I still think there are some high schoolers that can be obnoxious as well.
I see a lot of those kids when I'm driving to work. Since we live by a high school, so my commute, if I don't leave at a certain time, I get stuck waiting. For one, there's a police person that like directs traffic. So, but I get to see a lot of teenagers and that riffraff kind of running around and going into, like, speeding into their parents' vehicles or hopping out and not obeying all the crosswalks and stuff.
Oh, that drives me crazy. Although, well...
But it's not as bad as I've seen.
No, at least the road that the high school is on over here is not that bad. It's only a 2-lane road. Right. But, like... It was bad by, like, my high school. So my high school was a lot bigger than and probably about the same size as the high school by us. But we were by 2 busy streets, Arlington Heights Road and Dundee. And, like, there were kids that would jaywalk all the time. And you would be, like...
5 total lanes with the turn lane.
Oh, my gosh, yeah. And it was crazy. Like, not even... Like, some kids would even jaywalk in the crosswalk. You know, they would go when it was still, like, the red person or whatever. And it was just, like... It's so risky. We've had, like, kids... I don't know if it's happened recently, but I know in the past that there were at least a few high school kids, because we have open campus lunch, so you can... Literally, there's a McDonald's right across the street from the school, and, like, someone got hit by a car because they weren't paying attention when they were crossing the street, and I don't remember... I think she was okay, but I mean, it's just, like, it's scary. Like... Kids can be so brainless sometimes.
Right, and I think it's worse now with kids constantly on their phones.
Oh yeah,
and I can't
agree.
And I can't really say much. Because I know, like, we're on our phones a lot. Like, I feel like our whole generation's on our phones a lot. But like, we grew up without phones. Like, these kids that are like in high school now have had phones since they were like
small.
Since they were like not toddlers, but since they were like old enough to have like grade school age kids.
Well, some of the kids that are coming up into like middle school and stuff have never lived a life without like knowing what an iPad is, or like what like a laptop or whatever, like without like no life without that kind of stuff. And like it's appalling,
right? Because
literally, like, my kid, I teach all like 5th through 8th grade, but mostly I see 8th graders, and like these kids, like, they don't even buy calculators anymore. They're like, oh, well, I can just use my phone. And, like, they'll just pull it out during math class and just start going to town on their calculator on their phone. Ha! Those other teachers when I was younger. You're never going to have a calculator in your pocket. How are you going to go to the grocery store and spend money? Well, obviously they were wrong.
I can do a lot more than that with my phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that whole thing. Like, you're not going to want to carry around a big fat calculator in your pocket. Carry around something much bigger than the calculator I used in grade school. Mm-hmm. And I still memorize those multiplication tables for nothing.
Yes. Oh my goodness. That's the thing that bugs me the most as a teacher, is that they don't know they don't have anything memorized anymore. It's like, oh, like, I had to do, like, so we were doing square roots and stuff, and we had to know, like, what everything squared was, and then what the square root of everything, like, the perfect squares were, and then just, like, anything squared. We had to know that. It's basic doubles facts. And my kids don't know. They just didn't know. They were like, well, I gotta type in the calculator. I'm like, guys, know your doubles facts. I mean, they're not that hard, I promise. And it's like, they just don't. It's just not in there. It's not, they're learning, but they're learning for, like, the specific time period. Like, if they need it for a certain unit, great, they'll know it for the unit, but then if you ask them for it later, it's there's no retention at all.
I mean, like, I know I probably forgot some of my multiplication tables or some of the roots and squared and all that, but it happens. If you don't use it and you're an adult, sometimes that stuff just slips your memory.
Yeah, I understand, but, like, basic double-digit multiplication. Like, not double-digit multiple, like, just doubles facts. They don't know that 1 times 1 is 1. Like, they don't know 2 times 2 is 4. Like, 3 times 3, like, they think 3 times 3 is 6. I'm like, it is not 6, it is 9. And it's like,
I remember teaching it with, like, you have 3 of these things, so this, yeah, and all that.
It's like I almost have to teach, I don't even know when they, like, what, I learned my multiplication facts maybe in 3rd grade. It's like, do I have to go back and teach 3rd grade to these kids?
Teach the multiplications of 9 with your hands.
Oh my gosh, they don't even know that. I showed them that once, and they were like, it blew their mind.
Right, that's something I still stuck out since I learned it, like, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, whatever grade that was, that, like, you know what, like, you can just do with that, or...
Yeah, it's like, or like the 6 times 8. 6 times 8 is always 48. Like, that's how I remembered it. They just have no clue. They have no clue. And if I asked them to skip count, they'd probably act like I was asking them to cut their tongue out.
The skip count.
A skip count, like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12.
Really?
Like, yeah, they just don't know. They know the 10s and maybe 5s, but, like, if you ask them, like, oh, count by 3s. Why? Because sometimes you need to count by 3s. Right. I mean, that's just the nature of math. But it's not even just math. They're just terrible at, like, I don't even know.
School.
Just, they don't care about school. There are so many kids, the way that they talk to adults, not just, like, in school, but just in life, that it's appalling. Like, when I was in middle school, I would have never, ever, ever thought, I'm going to talk back to the teacher, and I'm going to tell him to fuck off. Like, that's what some of these kids do, and it's like, I would have never thought to do that. Well, not that I wanted to do that, but...
I was afraid. Like,
like, they think it's acceptable and it's cool, and it's really not.
It's not. Like, have respect for your teachers. Like, my thing was, like, if I did something wrong, I was going to get in trouble at school, and I was going to get equally as in trouble at home, if not worse.
Exactly. And I don't think that happens anymore, because people just want to put their kids in front of a TV and just say, okay...
I mean,
like, don't want to deal with it.
Kids that have been given an iPad since they were able to hold it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's better than... So they can play games or watch shows, but so they don't have to be taught or parented.
Yeah.
Like, no kid under double digits should have computer time, an iPad time, phone time. Like, no.
I think it just needs to be... If they're going to do it, I think it needs to be monitored, because it's so easy now to, like... just go on the internet and, like, type in anything. Even if you type something in spelled incorrectly, you can find some pretty, like,
Google results, like,
graphic stuff on there just by accident. And it's not like, I mean, you have to put the parental controls on, but not a lot of parents really think that. They just
don't even know, like, how to do it.
Exactly, because some parents, it's like, oh, this kid is screaming and crying. I'm just going to put him on the iPad, and then I'm just going to leave him alone.
Right.
And that's not really a way to solve the problem. You're just pacifying it.
Right. Or it's like, oh, we're at a restaurant, the kid's going to act out. Let me just give him an iPad, so he'll just be quiet so I can eat my food. I
mean, there are some instances where, yes, that can be acceptable, but I feel like there's not a ton, like, there's... The parenting going on at this point is not like the parenting was when, you and I were growing up. Because, like, now parents are worried about giving them certain punishments, like, oh, a spanking, oh, washing their mouth out with soap. Like, my parents made me, like, so we had wood floor, and there was a significant, well, I'd probably say, like, maybe an 1/8 inch gap between boards, when around that time, and my parents would make it, like, if we did something bad, we had to kneel on the floor, no butt on the back of your legs, like, you had to kneel up straight on the cracks, and it hurt. I mean, it wasn't like a spanking or anything. I mean, we didn't get spanked very often, but it was something when we were older, like, that's something we don't want to do, and definitely taught you a lesson not to do it. And it's not like, oh, I have bad knees now because I did, because they made me kneel on the floor. I mean, they could have made it a lot worse. There were other parents that would do the kneeling, but they would put rice on the ground, so you had to kneel on the rice. That would hurt. But it's like certain, like, things
parents
that are
are
gonna...
afraid that what would be considered, like, abuse, that it's an overcorrection. Like, I think there's some things that sitting down with your kid and, like, discussing, like, is not going to solve it.
Oh my... Well, some kids, like, trying to discuss their feelings with a 3-year-old is not going to teach them how to...
Right.
It's just, they don't understand. So you have to give them more of a rash and bigger consequence so they understand, oh, I don't do that. Because they don't see things in gray, like when you're trying to explain what's wrong, they see black or white. Either it's wrong or it's right, and you have to kind of parent in that way.
Or they'll
not
take
that
away.
Like, not that we're parent or anything, but it's just
we'll have more, probably once we're parents and have to deal with that, we'll have our own thoughts and ideas and all that, just because a lot of it's you kind of learn on the way, but...
Yeah, just as I guess as us as outsiders looking in.
Right, and like Liz being in education, so sees a lot of kids and parents and all that, gets to see kind of behind the curtain a little bit there.
Gosh, it's awful sometimes. And it's not even just like the personality, just like the type of music they listen to. Like, some of the music that these kids, like, we thought we were bad when we were listening to stuff with like, oh, heck. Or like hell or damn or oh my gosh, we're so bad because they said shit. Like, now these kids are like listening to stuff like, oh, F this, N, and blah, blah. Like, they're just like one of my fifth graders, mind you, is listening to, like, one of the, I don't remember exactly what new time rapper they were listening to, but it was, like, he was saying, like, the N-word, like, 3 or 4 different times, like, in the song, and I was like, you need to knock it off, put your headphones in, I don't want to hear that, your other people in the class don't want to hear that, because that's super disrespectful, and the kid just was like, no, I don't care. I'm like, really, you're gonna care when I write you up because that's inappropriate music at school.
Right.
And, like, I'm pretty, like my music I knew when I was growing up, some of it was not school appropriate, and I understood that stuff I listened to at home, that's the kind of language I can do at home, but I can't do it here. And it's like, it doesn't translate for the kids now. They're like, oh, I can listen to all this explicit music at home. I'm going to listen to it at school, and no one's going to tell me otherwise. But I'm that bitch that says, no, you're not listening to that.
Definitely.
Well, and it's all, well, so now so at my school, we're 1-to-1 Chromebooks, so they all have their Chromebooks, and they use it, it's like their baby. And it's not only just the music, just like this YouTube stuff is just terrible.
Well, talk about something you just told me just before we started
recording. Oh my gosh.
So
my kids, since the beginning of the school year, have been talking about this Jeffy. And I'm just like, and it's like, one of the kids has disabilities, and he's kind of on the lower end of, like, the spectrum. And he's saying, like, oh, it's bad, but it's funny. And I'm like, okay, like, I'm thinking along the lines of, like, I don't know, like, Jeff Dunham, where it's like, it's funny and you know it's a joke and whatever. You know, the guy who does, like, the Peanut and Everybody.
Oh, yeah.
That guy. Like, so you know it's funny, you know that it's a joke, whatever.
Right.
But, so I watched, like, not even, like, 5 minutes of this Jeffy video. The Jeffy is, like, they're making fun of kids with, like, disabilities, and it's just, like, because he has, like, the helmet, he has, like, a pencil stuck up his nose, and he's a puppet, and I'm just like, what the heck? I was like, that is so disrespectful, and they're making fun of the fact that he's got a low IQ and isn't quite up to speed and whatever, and it's just like, oh my gosh, and they think it's hilarious. I'm just like, that is terrible. That's basically saying that anybody that is acting like him is funny, and, like, you should laugh at them, because it's not like they're laughing with him, they're laughing at him.
Right.
And it just, that boils my blood. So, starting tomorrow, my kids are going to have a rude awakening. If they mention Jeffy, there's going to be some write-ups and detentions. Oh, I'm going to be writing up like nobody's business.
Don't cross the list.
Don't. No, I really am. I'm surprised that
She's
kids.
that teacher.
I am that teacher. I'm so old fashioned, and the kids don't really even realize it.
Right.
But it's just like they need to know, just like basic humanity. I don't know. That's like the only way I can really describe it is just being a basic human. And I don't know if that's really necessarily around anymore. A basic human who's just chill, like you know your boundaries, you know what to do and what not to do, and then just like go about your day. I feel like there's not really many people like that anymore. I feel like there's very extreme, like I don't know, like extreme types of people. There's not really like a in between, like a normal anymore.
Right. There's something I can really think of that like bridges the. Yeah.
It's either like the kids are just like, I don't know, they're like crazy and just like really, really like angry and like want to be defiant or whatever. And then there's kids that are just super quiet and you don't even know they exist. And like, it's just, I don't know, and can be like snide and disrespectful. I don't know.
Right.
Kids grind my gears, if you haven't noticed.
Right. And it's just the nature of the beast when you're a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Or have to deal with kids. Like, I don't know. I've been pretty lucky. I haven't seen too much crazy stuff from when I travel for work. I have to go through the airport system, except for when kids do not know how to behave in an airport or in TSA and all that, and they'll just kind of run a little rampant. But usually their parents put a stop on that because that can cause just more problems for them.
Mm-hmm.
If their kids are misbehaving or running around or not following the protocol, like taking stuff off or keeping stuff in your pocket. It's just...
Well, that's the thing. That's the good thing about... I mean, you can't really pull out an iPad when you're going through TSA and a kid is screaming his head off or goofing off. You can't really pull your iPad out. Well, guess what? It has to be in the bin. So now what are you going to do? That's kind of like... It's like, well, you know, you think the iPad or the cell phone is going to cure everything... And it's like, well, there's certain occasions where you're not going to be able to have access to that.
Right. Well, that brings me back. So I just thought of this. There was more to that story of those kids when we were at Glow Golf. When we left there, the kids left before us. And, like, their parents made a scavenger hunt for them that involved them going into different of the stores in the mall to look for certain things. And, like their kids would just be running rampant into a store, not buying anything, causing chaos, and then leaving.
I mean, I know that in the past, there have been certain, like, I know that there'll be, like, mall-sponsored stuff that's like that. They'll do that for kids. And I feel like it's more, like, in the holiday season they'll do that. Mm-hmm. But, like, if you're just doing it off on your own, that's just being really inconsiderate of the people who are working and the people that are actually, like, looking to buy stuff in a store.
Right. Like, if I was working at one of those department stores and, like, kids came in, come on. Like... It's a weekday night. I don't want to deal with... Actually, it is a weekend night. Mm-hmm. So, like, I don't want to deal with it. It's towards the end of the night. I just want to get my shit done and get out of there and be done with it.
Well, and it's like, then you have to deal with... Like, the thing that I didn't like the most about working with, like, people, like, in more of a retail setting is that I just hated when people complained. And, like, when you have people that are being disrespectful, then you have people that are complaining. And then, like, what's worse? Dealing with the kids that are being obnoxious or dealing with... like, people that are just complaining.
Like, you know something about these kids? Like, what do you want me to do?
Exactly. It's
I can't
like,
yell at these kids. I can't discipline them because...
Yeah, because then they're, you know, I'd like to see the manager mothers come in and be like, why are you trying to tell my kid what to do? Blah, blah, blah. And then you're just stuck in, like, this situation that just is uncomfortable for you and maybe everybody else around you.
Right. The youth of today.
Youths, yeah. That's really all I can say about them is that they're just youths.
I don't even know
like wearing, and here's the thing too, there's some kid, like, just the amount of responsibility that some of these parents are giving their kids in, like, the preteens, like, being able to carry a cell phone and having unlimited texting, data, whatever. Like, that's so, like, that was not something that, I mean, granted, you know, having unlimited stuff wasn't in existence when we were in school, but, like, just the fact that you, like, it's very unsupervised, and you get all these, like, I know I watch a lot of the murder shows, but, I mean, there's this one show that's basically all about kids or people who get catfished online and end up dying because their parents, you know, they're 13, 14 years old, and their parents don't have a clue that these kids are talking to these people that are posing as kids at their age, and then they end up sneaking out and, find out, oh, he's 40 years old, and ends up getting killed because they don't have a sense of, oh, this may not be the greatest thing to do, or like their parents just have no idea. And then you have these parents that sit there, and they're like, I had no idea they were talking to someone. Yeah, do you not talk to them?
Right.
How do you know?
Like, we had that happen. I guess we had that when we were kids with chat rooms. Because instant messaging was a big thing. Because no one had cell phones. We'd be on the computer and be on like AIM or that. And there was always those extra chat rooms. But that's I don't know if we talked about this show. It's like something that was kind of like related to that, involved that movie Searching. Because the father knew none of the daughter's friends. Like, didn't know who she hanging out with.
I mean, and that's what kind of made it like more like, not like bone chilling, but just more like, it kind of made you realize like how much you're actually putting onto your, like how much kids really are putting on their computer. And like you can think your kid acts and is a certain way, but they can be a totally different person online.
Right.
And you would never know unless not that they'll tell you the truth if you ask them, but unless you're in the know with technology as well.
Right. Well, the thing where like certain parents will have that special thing on their phone, like where any text that goes to the kid's phone will also be sent to the parent's phone, or... I feel
like there's certain times where, yes, I think that is appropriate to do, but then there's like, I feel like kids hit a certain age where it's just like you have to...
You trust them.
You have to trust them. But it's so hard to trust them in a world where literally you can live a double life, because you can be one person in real life and one person online.
Right. Some people are the shyest, quietest people in their day-to-day lives, but online or on that, they're the most outgoing. They're social. They find comfort behind a screen, and that's how like everyone is so like that's how cyberbullying becomes a big problem. Is that kids, the anonymity of being online made like things that you wouldn't tell a kid to their face, but you could say it online, made it so much easier for them.
Well, exactly, and it's like, it's just bad. I don't know. Cause like, and that's like, cyberbullying is one of like the hardest things to prove, because like you have to be online, and literally if a kid says, no, I'm not going to give you my information to go in and look at these things, like you don't really have any case.
Right. You can't.
Unless you subpoena them,
right?
Which is a whole nother thing.
Right, you can't demand the kids' passwords. You can't be able to just access all that stuff, and you can't snoop behind their back, because that just creates distrust between you and your child. There's a lot that can be problematic. Like we saw that whole thing with that Blockers movie had the whole comedic thing of like the computer was left open, and like with Apple products, your texting on your phone could be linked to your computer. So all the texts they were sending back and forth were popping up on the screen, so you could see what they were saying, and that created a whole problem. But that also involved an invasion of privacy first. I mean, it was a funny movie, and I enjoyed it. But still, like that's like you could learn stuff that you were never meant to learn about your kid.
And I mean, I understand that there are parts of your kid that you're never gonna know just because they don't want you to know.
Right.
But it's like, you don't want it to get to a point where it becomes dangerous. And I feel like there's time and time again, it gets to the point where it gets dangerous, and then you're kind of sitting there like feeling bad about yourself because you didn't do anything, or you didn't know to do anything about it.
Right.
And that's what I'm going to be terrified of if we have a teenage daughter, or whenever we have teenagers. I'm probably going to like hide in my room and say, I'll see you when you're 20. Bye. Daddy can deal with you now. I'm not going to do it. Because I know I'm going to be like a nervous wreck, especially when they start going to like football games and dances. I'm going to be like sitting on the couch.
Boy-girl parties?
They're not allowed to go to boy-girl parties. Not unless the parents is home. That's my thing. I don't know. I'm very
No dating until you're 16.
Ha ha ha. That's what I tried. It didn't work. Well, that's what my parents thought, and it didn't work.
Well, like, that's what, like, group things can easily become... It's the same thing, like, you can tell your parents one thing and do it on something else entirely different.
Yeah, and I know how I was as a teenager, and it just makes me, like, everyone says, or at least my grandmother likes to say, oh, the next generation is always worse. So, like, she said, well, oh, your mom was a terror when she was younger. And then my mom's like, oh, I was so much worse than she was, and blah, blah, blah. Now I'm going to be like, oh, my God, my child is going to be, like, 20 times worse than I ever was.
Well, and I feel like a lot of that is just, like, you see things differently as a parent than you do as a kid. So it always seem like, there's no way I was that bad at their age, even though it's probably the same level of bad.
Oh, yeah. Like how my mom always says, you never wanted your little brother. You always said that he was terrible and to take him away. And I'm like,
you were 4.
I was 3. I was by myself for a whole 3 years of existence.
You have no concept
I had no concept. And, and like my mom makes it seem like my brother and I have this horrible relationship. Yes, we argue. We're brother and sister. What do you expect? But I still, I don't know. I still care about my brother. I still want to see him when he comes home to visit.
Right.
Is it hard to, connect with him sometimes because we have that age difference? Sure. But we still have, in general, we like each other. It's not like we outwardly hate each other or anything.
Right. I'm sure when you're both...
we don't agree on some things.
I'm sure when you're both were prepubescent or all that stuff, there was a lot of squabbling and fighting and crying and throwing fits at each other. But, since you guys have been, since your brother's been in, high school on, you guys have been pretty good with each other.
Oh, yeah. Well, it also helped that both of us, so we're 3.5 years apart, or 4 years in school. So, when he was a freshman in high school, I was a freshman in college. And so that was kind of nice, because, yeah, he was a little more immature than I was, but it just kind of, we were kind of at the same place, but... when I was in middle school and my brother was in elementary school, it was like, ew, he's in elementary school. I don't want to have to deal with that little baby, know? And then in high school, it was the same thing. Ugh, I don't want to deal with that middle schooler.
Right.
But then you're on the same level once you kind of get past that.
It's typical big sister, just wanting to be your own person, not worry about someone trailing behind you or wanting to hang out. Mm-hmm. And it helped that probably you guys didn't really run in the same... types of things.
Yeah, my brother and I did not. We did have some teachers that were the same when it came to going through middle school, high school, elementary school, but a lot of the times I had the older teachers, so they were retired by the time my brother got to that grade.
Right. It was the same thing for me and my brother. We had very few classes together by the time, because he was 4 years ahead of me, so it was just that cycle shifts. Mm-hmm. Or teachers no longer teach that, or some teachers move up or down grade levels, and it never amounts to anything.
Mm-hmm.
But
luckily, my brother got lucky because I was not the talker at all when I was in high school or middle school or whatever, and they would, a lot of times when they would see his name, some teachers didn't even remember who I was, even though my brother would say, oh yeah, she's, my sister is Liz Sturba. They would have no idea. They'd be like, who? I had her? When did I have her?
Right, because
I didn't talk.
You're the quiet kid who got their work done and moved on.
I was forgettable. I will say that.
There
were, for certain teachers, I was forgettable. For some I say for maybe a handful of teachers, I am a little bit memorable. A little bit.
Right. In
German class. Because I babysat the German teacher's kid when I was in college for a little bit.
Nice.
But past that, I don't know.
Right.
She's the only teacher that would really that's the first one to come to mind if I was they remember me. Because I also saved her butt on one occasion.
What's the story?
Oh, the story? Well, so we were...
If you want to share it.
Yeah, I don't care. So it was my first year in German, and... they do an exchange program with a school in Germany, and I signed up for one exchange student, and so we're going through the process. I know who she is, whatever, and we email, and then I get this random email. So I had to email her. So I was going through my email, and I see this one from another German student. And she says, hey, her name is Yana. I was like, hi, I'm Yana. I'm Milena's best friend, whatever. I haven't heard from the person I'm staying with. Could you ask someone about it? So I, brought it to my teacher's attention, and come to find out, this girl dropped out last minute on the U.S. side, my side. She dropped out at the last second, And my teacher was freaking out because she had nobody else really wanted to do it. Because it's kind of a big undertaking when you do it.
You essentially adopted a kid for like 3 weeks to a month, I think. And so eventually, she came up to me and she's like, I don't have anybody else. Is there any way that you can take another one? They're best friends. They would be fine. So, like, I had to beg my mom. Like, I had to beg her. Because I felt bad. I didn't want, Yana to miss out on this experience because none of the kids came back. I mean, it was only like a once in a lifetime opportunity for them. Like, to come with school at a discounted rate to go to the U.S. and kind of experience it. So, like, I just kind of, like, made my mom clear about that, like, oh, if we don't do this, like, she spent all this money and now she's not going to get to go, and, like, that's just sad. But luckily, my mom was nice and let me have both. And do they go to like class with you? Like, they have
they
curriculum?
did. Mm-hmm. They did. I'm pretty sure that, like, so this was my junior year of high school. Yeah, junior year of high school. And I'm pretty sure when they only came to, like, a few classes because, like, they would either be in the German room or they would have, like, their teacher would take them on these excursions during the day, and then they would hang out at night at our houses.
Did they have a German teacher that came with them?
Yeah.
That stayed somewhere, most likely?
Yeah, he stayed, so it was, I don't remember his name exactly, but I remember he actually stayed with our German teacher.
Oh, so
she hosted him, and then, it's pretty typical, at least at this school, where the teacher, if they're doing the exchange program, they usually host the teacher, and then vice versa, because I think it's like every 2 years, the orchestra people, they have exchange students in Austria, so they go to Austria every 2 years, and then with German, I think it's every 3. I don't remember exactly. I'm sad I didn't get to go because I kind of went on an off year.
So you got to take in kids from Germany,
I couldn't go.
You would have probably loved to be able to go.
Oh my gosh. And, like, my exchange students were, like, the best. Like, we were very close, and
still kind of.
We occasionally chat.
You're closer than Facebook friends.
Slightly.
You got enough that you can comment on each other's things on Facebook.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's
they're your age, so, like, you get to see how, not the other half lived, but you get to see how kids your same age in Germany are doing their adult lives out there.
And it's like, I don't know. I mean, we really don't have. I guess I don't really know about the high school where I teach, if they have that. I mean, in the 8th grade, we have these wiki buddies where we contact kids from Mexico, but it's not like they ever get to meet them. So it's just like having a pen pal, but, like, actually getting to see these people and, like, have them in your daily life, like, it was almost like at that time in my life, I could not, like, when they were there, it was like, how am I going to even live my life without them? It was almost like having 2 sisters. It was great. And then when they left, it was like, oh, I haven't seen him since. We've talked a lot between then, but I just haven't. It's so expensive to get to Europe that it's just.
And they're not can't really come back.
And I know that one of them did come back, but it's like they don't want to go back to Chicago. They want to go and experience other things. And
right.
Of course, the other things that they want to experience are also expensive to get to in the U.S.
Right.
So I kind of missed out on that.
It is what it is.
It is what it is right.
But at least we can kind of end on a high note. But I think that'll probably do it for Adulting It Easy for this week, about the youths. And being surrounded by them and being them.
We're not them anymore.
Right.
I feel like the old ladies and old men.
Yeah. And especially now that I have, like, a sore back and sore legs from all this work, I'm like, I feel 80 years old. Even though I was working with an 80-year-old who probably feels better now.
Because he's like Bull. He's strong like Bull.
He's strong like Bull. Yeah. But yeah, that'll do it for this week. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Liz.
Have a great week.